I was living in rural Tennessee. I was a teenager at the time and had been up late working on an assignment. I was definitely sleep deprived and exhausted. I was getting ready for bed and was in our hallway bathroom. The hallway outside was dark, and I swear I saw two little gnomes run past the door. They had pointy hats and were maybe 2 feet tall. I didn't tell anyone and just brushed it off as me being tired. But I still think about it sometimes and wonder what I did or didn't see. When I was still in elementary school, my family and I used to spend all summer at my great-uncle's house. We all slept in the same room, except for my sister, who slept on a bed in the living room, and my great-uncle, who had his own room. That day had been pretty normal. We went to the beach, ate some pizza, and then around 10 p.m., we all went to sleep. At around 4 a.m., I suddenly woke up because someone was throwing things around in the kitchen. Plastic cups, containers, food, etc. The door was open, so I could see the light coming from the kitchen. After a while, the noise became too much, so I got out of bed. Right away, something felt off. I thought I might be having a strange dream, but I wasn't. My father wasn't in his bed, but I didn't think much of it. Maybe he was just in the bathroom. My great-uncle was fairly old and had trouble sleeping at night, so I figured he might have gone to the kitchen to get some water. Uncle? Are you all right? All this noise woke me up, I said as I walked toward the kitchen. To my surprise, the room was empty, but the light was on and the fridge was open, with a can of Coke lying on the floor in front of it. What? I thought. I looked up at the shelf to my right, and that's when I saw what was making the noise. Some sort of short creature, around 30 centimeters tall, a gnome, you might say, was staring at me, terrified. He was terrified because I'd seen him. I thought to myself, he's going to hurt me. I better pretend to faint. So I did. After a few seconds, I opened my eyes, and I wasn't in the kitchen anymore. I was in a strange, colorful tunnel. I got scared again and shut my eyes tightly. After what felt like an eternity, I opened them again. I was back in my bed. There were still noises coming from the kitchen, but I was too scared to move. I just waited for them to stop, and before sunrise, they did. That wasn't the only encounter I had with that little guy, but I never saw him again. I only heard him, because I was, and still am, too scared to look. I don't know what he was doing exactly, but I'm sure I wasn't supposed to see him. I just read an experience that really got me thinking. I believe in the paranormal, mostly ghosts and things like that, but folklore creatures like gnomes, fairies, etc. never really felt real to me. Maybe it's because the legends you hear in small towns or on the internet are always exaggerated. Recently, though, a friend of mine shared an experience with me, and I also have an experience of my own that was kind of spooky. I heard this one from an intern at my job. At the time, we were working in Mexico City, but she was from a small town in another state, where her family still lives. Her aunt owns a house near some kind of forest. She lives alone and has a really big garden, where she plants flowers and other things. One day, her aunt started telling the family that gnomes had begun appearing in her garden. Naturally, the family didn't believe her at first, until two of her uncles, on separate occasions, saw them running around and got really spooked. They described them as very small people, running through the garden. They said it was hard to see them clearly at first. You notice the movement before you actually spot them. At first, they thought it might be mice, or some kind of animal, but over time, the aunt kept insisting they were gnomes. Then one day, one of the uncles actually saw a tiny man running through the garden. Now, her aunt lives alone and is retired, so the family visits her often to check in and bring her food and supplies. The weird part is that the uncle who told this story, after years of visiting her regularly, suddenly stopped going. He said the gnomes freaked him out too much. According to my friend, this was very out of character for him, which made the rest of the family take the story more seriously. She even invited me to visit her aunt's town, but it's a 7 to 8 hour trip, and I never got the chance to go. Now, for my personal encounter, this one really got to me because I saw the aftermath of it with my own eyes. It happened around 2008. We were visiting my dad's side of the family in Tabasco, Mexico. They live on a ranch, and we stayed with them for 4 days. It's a pretty large property, with areas they don't even use, open grasslands, and some small swamps. There's a big house where my relatives live, and 2 smaller houses where their workers live. One of them is about a 15-minute walk down a dirt road, and the other is about 20 minutes by car. This matters because on the second day we were there, around 6 p.m., they sent my nephew, who was about 10 to 12 years old at the time, to the nearby house to get some ingredients for dinner. Time passed, and he didn't come back. Everyone assumed he must have stayed at the house playing with the worker's son, who was his friend. But when it got dark, like 9 p.m. dark, they started to get worried. They called the neighbor's house to ask about him, and they said he never showed up. So my dad, my uncle, and I walked the dirt road to the house and back, calling for him, but we didn't see or hear anything. When we finally returned to the main house, there he was. My nephew had come back, crying, and the adults were scolding him hard. But here's the creepy part. He was filthy. He had scratches all over, some of them bleeding, like someone had dragged him through the bushes. And that road is lined with bushes and tall grass. Most of the adults just assumed he was playing outside and fell. But the scratches, they looked like he'd been dragged. After he calmed down, he told my sister and me what happened. He said he was walking down the road when he heard whistling. He'd heard it before, so instead of being scared, he got curious and kept walking. Then someone called his name, and from the tall grass, he saw what he described as a gnome. He said it was smaller than him, maybe about 4 feet tall, with plain clothes, wrinkled skin, and a man's face. At first, he thought it was his friend kneeling down or something, but the voice was strange. The gnome kept telling him, over and over, to come play. He got scared, but for some reason he didn't run. He said he didn't feel like he was in danger, but he still refused. He told the gnome, "I have something to do, I can't play." And the gnome responded with, "That's stupid, come with me and play." The next thing he remembers, he was waking up on the ground, not far from the road. He got up and ran back to the house, terrified. I know, it sounds crazy, but he was missing for 3 hours. He had real scratches. I don't believe he would just go off into the wilderness alone to play. His parents were strict, and they used to beat him for skipping chores. There's just no way he'd risk that. Also, he told my sister and me this story in private, without any adults around. That's how we usually got the truth out of him, even if he had done something wrong. He was younger than us, and not the kind of kid to make things up to scare people. After posting this, I was talking to my sister about it, and she reminded me of something really creepy I had forgotten. She said my nephew actually called the thing he saw a Shanek. I didn't know much about them. I thought it was just the local name for a gnome or forest creature. But about an hour ago, I Googled what a Shanek is, and it fits the description perfectly. Turns out, a Shanek is a small creature from Mexican mythology, pre-Hispanic culture from Mesoamerica. The name means those who dwell in dangerous places. They're said to live in forests and protect animals and nature, similar to gnomes or nature spirits. But here's the disturbing part. They supposedly kidnap children, sometimes to sacrifice them. They lure people who are walking alone in the wilderness, distract them, and make them lose their way, sometimes as a prank, sometimes for darker reasons. I know this sounds dumb, and I've got 1,000 other stories that are much easier to believe than this one, but this is the one that stuck with me the most. Okay, so this happened when I was 17. I live in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. My friend and I were at a bonfire party, and we were heading home. I promise I wasn't drinking, but he was. I was his designated driver. He sat in the back seat while I drove. The area we live in is a super small and spread out town. To get back home from where we were, we had to take a lot of secluded back roads. It's not exactly safe to drive at night around here, between the drug addicts and the animals that love to dart across the road. Right before we get home, there's a hill we have to go up. It's kind of notorious. People abandon unwanted pets there, and it's just not a place you want to be at night. Anyway, I got to the very top of the hill, and I saw something moving outside the window to my right. I looked over, and I swear, it looked almost exactly like a garden gnome. He had a long beard, standard gnome clothes, and this really blank, expressionless look on his face. I was literally scared shitless, and I stopped the car. He just stood there, staring at me. I honestly thought I was so tired that I was hallucinating. I tried waking my friend in the back seat, hoping he'd stay awake with me, but he was way too tired and drunk for it to matter. The gnome just kept staring. Eventually, I started driving again, and that's when it got worse. As soon as I moved the car, he started running alongside it at the exact same pace. Whenever I sped up, he sped up. When I slowed down, he slowed down. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Why the hell would you slow down? I don't know either. Instinct, maybe? Eventually, my friend woke up to throw up, I guess. He went to roll down the window to get some fresh air, and he saw the gnome running right beside the car. He freaked out. I freaked out. I floored it and drove down the hill as fast as I could, and the gnome kept pace the whole time. Finally, once we got to the bottom of the hill, he jumped into the bushes and disappeared. I've been up and down that hill probably 1,000 times before and after that night, and I've never experienced anything like that again. I don't know if it was actually a gnome or something else entirely, but that's what my friend and I still call it. My grandma's lived here her entire life, and while she believes weird things happen out here, she swears up and down she's never seen a gnome. Most people haven't. I will be the first to admit I thought these types of cryptids were a joke and not real, and I've never been able to take them seriously. I am an outdoorsman and have been for 35 years. I grew up in the woods. I memorized trees for mushroom hunting for a living. I know every brook, stream, bush, berry grove, log, you name it. I'm on a forest road and I'm on hour 9 of not a soul in sight. I gather some mushrooms and look up the road and see a rock has fallen from the loose, steep side of the mountain to the middle of the road. I make a mental note that I have to move it and not drive over it. I gather my mushrooms and get back to the car. I look up and I see what appears to be a 2 or 2.5 foot tall little brown thing walking from the side of the road over to the rock. My first logical thought is that it is a squirrel, but I see it is walking on 2 legs, appears to be wearing brown cloth or fur clothes, and is shaped like a human, but very tiny. It's not scurrying either. It is ambling on 2 legs like a human would, just casually walking like this is some normal, regular-ass thing, like monotonous work it does for a living. I don't believe my lying eyes. It has to be something else. I get back in the car and head up the road and see that the rock has been pushed back to the side of the road from whence it came. It had fallen off the hill, rolled to my left, then was sitting back on the other side of the road on the right. There are drag marks like someone slid it back. I look, I smell, I sense, I listen. Nothing. I don't know where gnomes live, but the old partially logged section where I was at looked pretty perfect for a clan of these things. Lots of places to hide, secluded, near water, plenty of routes of escape, and would be easy to dig little holes in the mountain and be fortified against invaders. The side road into it was flooded and appears to do so regularly, so these little guys even have their own moat. I'm positive I'm overthinking this. It was a long drive back up the mountain, then down the mountain the other way, and some time home, and I can't pick this apart into anything else but being a tiny little forest man. I'm like 1000% positive that I saw what I saw.